And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Rupert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Rupert Pictou. In Canada, anyone between 12 and 17 years old is considered a youth and may go through the youth justice system if they commit a crime or are accused of committing a crime. Tonight on Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1989.
This is the new Youth Containment Center in Prince George, a first-of-its-kind facility for the province, combining secure confinement for young offenders with an effort to make their jail time serve the philosophies of the new Young Offenders Act. And this is the Deputy Director of Operations here, Peter Tilt.
I'm basically responsible for the day-to-day operation and security of the center. So there are 60 direct employees and about another 15 contracted staff here. And my role is to ensure that the security systems function, that the daily to and fro of the place is maintained. One of our two co-ed operations.
Peter took time in the hectic weeks prior to opening to tour us through the 4,000 square meter Youth Containment Center and explain what the Young Offenders Act seeks to accomplish here.
Some of the principles of the Young Offenders Act are to ensure minimal intervention, maximum responsibility, protection of the public, those kinds of qualities all sort of mixed up. It's got some almost conflicting philosophies in there. What we've tried to do is design a very secure facility so that we could say that within the working environment that residents can have as much opportunity to express themselves, to be responsible for their own behavior, if you will, do their own laundry, move unescorted in the building to a large extent, those kinds of things, and yet still ensure a highly secure environment for both their protection and the public and the staff.
There are 4 residential sections with 12 beds each, divided into 36 secure and 12 open custody units. Secure is for those confined for violent actions, at risk of escape, or other more serious and long-term offenders. The basic focus is on northern kids, and secure is a somewhat relative term.
Now, there's a difference between the northern kids and the more urban southern kids, and part of what we've tried to respond to, particularly with our programming, is some of those differences, because we recognize that even when we're talking about a sophisticated, secure sentence individual, it's not quite the same thing as somebody who's graduated through the street scene of Vancouver.
Currently, the average incarceration for young offenders is something over 6 months. Northern courts did not sentence for less because the time had to be served down south. Plans are to bring in about 30 youth presently held elsewhere in the system, gradually, so the systems here can come up to speed. The other 18 vacancies are there to be filled by the court systems across the north.
Want to know that, okay, the body's laying.
The staff, trained on-site, is from varied backgrounds, some in corrections, some not, but all with an active interest in young people. School is not an option for inmates here, it is expected.
That's one of the northern characteristics. Time and time again we've seen kids from the north with very low life skills and very low educational levels, and they tend to just sort of repeat and cycle through the system. So that's one of the areas in which we're trying to address.
There are wood and metal shops, a gym, games room, television, private rooms with radio, but this is not summer camp. It is a totally controlled environment where the amenities are not rights, but incentives.
Part of the stick is the fact that you can withdraw the carrot, and that is a significant thing when you think that you're working within a very closed environment. They don't have options. They can't say, I opt out of school and I'm going to go hang around the street corner, because there's no street corner to hang around. I don't want to participate in constructive physical activity because I'd rather stand around the video arcade and party with my friends. Well, you can't do those things either. So part of the carrot side of things is also the stick.
Tough but fair. Work is rewarded with wages and privileges. Unacceptable behavior results in restrictions. Will the new facility and a specifically northern approach work? Peter Tilt says it will be a year or so before they can say.
Part of the test has to come from the man in the street, if you will. I mean, hopefully we can affect attitudes. I mean, we can say, yes, we have a very nice facility here, something that people in Prince George and the North can be proud of, something that has a very humane feel to it, but underlying security and safety of everybody is ensured. And if we can do those kinds of things and we can communicate that to the general public, then, you know, we're successful.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Founded in 1910 as the Naval Service of Canada and given the Royal Sanction in 1911, the Royal Canadian Navy was placed under the Department of National Defence in 1923. Let us return to the archives to discover why the Navy was in Prince Rupert.
These wooden-hulled Navy ships were once minesweepers, but today they're used for training junior officers and other Navy sailors. 5 of the vessels from the 1st Division Canadian Training Squadron based in Esquimalt visited Prince Rupert during Seafest. All 5, including our host, the HMCS Cowichan, were launched in 1956 or 57 as minesweepers, but they've since had their minesweeping equipment removed. The ships are each about 50 meters long and have a complement of 4 officers and 28 crew and up to 9 students. Those student officers helped guide the vessels out of Prince Rupert Harbor at the beginning of our tour. They've already been through months of training under the eye of training officer Don Cameron, and they're gradually getting hands-on experience aboard these vessels.
Well, as soon as they join the Armed Forces through the various recruiting centres across Canada, they're sent to Chilliwack, BC for a basic officer training, which lasts about 13 weeks, and where they're taught how to salute and how to march and how to generally be a military officer. And after that, they go and get a second language. They complete second language training in either French or English, and before they finally come to the Naval Officer Training Center for their naval indoctrination.
Now, what are you teaching them once they get aboard this ship?
I'm teaching them the basics of navigation and how to be a good officer on the bridge. That is, the officer that's in charge of driving the ship from place to place.
And what kind of things do they have to learn to be able to do that?
Well, they tell you that they have to learn how to stay up very late at night doing all their extra work, but they have to learn how to be very precise in their navigation and how to keep the ship safe generally when the captain's below and when we're in strange, unfamiliar waters.
The student officers took a back seat to the Cowichan's regular crew for the next stage of our tour. Once the squadron was in more open water outside the harbor, the students watched as the regular crew put the ships through a complicated series of Officer of the Watch maneuvers, showing off the vessel's capabilities and the sailors' navigational skills.
The reason we do these Officer of the Watch maneuvers is to teach the young officers how to handle a ship in formation. Because of course, when they go off to join their operational destroyers, they're going to be involved in operations with with Canadian units and with NATO units and American units. In fact, navies from all over the world. And when we deploy, depending on the situation, you've got different types of formations that the ships have got to go in, and it changes all the time. It's not static, and they've got to know how to get the ship from point A to point B safely. And this is the best way to do it.
These maneuvers are precise, with the ships just 300 yards apart or less. That requires a very strict procedure.
Every day we go to sea, one ship is in charge of all 5 ships. Today it's Shiller, which is the ship ahead of us. And what she'll do is send out a tactical signal to us, in fact to all ships, saying that I have a maneuver I want you to do. and it's received by Matthew Andrade, who's the chief yeoman of signals on board the ship. He writes it down. He'll then explain it to the officer of the watch in English, breaking down the tactical signal. And once everybody understands the signal, in most cases, once everybody understands the signal, then a few seconds later there'll be a signal come across which is standby execute, which means go, and everybody goes to the next station.
Signal executed, sir. Ourselves and Fundy will exchange stations. Fundy will move astern of Cowichan, and both ships then proceed to their new station. Wind and station battle bear 045 at 300 yards.
Range to guide 475 yards.
Alpha 7 Charlie, execute to follow, break. Station Juliet, call sign 4 Romeo 2.
There are certainly some risks involved, and there have been problems in the past, but it's a risk that we deem is worth taking because it gives a lot of training value to be that close together. Sometimes the captain has to step in and do a fairly radical maneuver to get the ship out of a dangerous spot. But generally they're fairly safe, and the students really learn from being that close together.
These vessels have an unusual feature that makes them especially tricky to maneuver. Timing is critical because of an inflatable clutch. In fact, the captain won't let anyone else call the orders when the vessel is pulling alongside a dock.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. The fleet of the Royal Canadian Navy consists of surface warships, submarines, and auxiliary vessels. The current fleet consists of 66 vessels. Let us return the archives as the captain of the HMCS Cowichan shares docking procedures.
The minimum speed of the ship, not the maximum speed, the minimum speed is 9 knots, and that's got to do with the type of engine and clutching arrangements that the ship has, and it's a direct drive system, and it has an air clutch, which means that if you want to go out from a head to a stern, you've got to pause about 10 seconds and hope that you weren't coming in too fast on alongside on a jetty. But as I guess you saw today, they're very maneuverable ships, and they're a lot of fun to drive, and they're easy to once you get the hang of the clutch system, they're pretty easy to drive as well.
The design of these ships also makes them a bit uncomfortable in rough weather.
Actually, it was a little bit lumpy when we came up and crossed Queen Charlotte Strait on Monday. They're very stable ships, very seaworthy ships, but they're also very lively ships in any kind of a seaway. If the winds come up, they tend to pitch quite a bit and roll quite a bit, and if you're not used to the motion, it's a little bit uncomfortable for the first day or two out.
The student officers agree there are many challenges aboard these ships.
Challenge, you name it, you got it. There's all kinds of challenge, like there's a very narrow channel passing, navigating all along the coast. There's man overboard exercise. There's steering gear breakdown exercise. You can have engine room emergency, all kinds. Those are part of training. But when you're navigating or part of the officer to watch on top of the bridge, you don't know when the CDO or the CO or whoever got called an emergency by phone. So you're there on the bridge, that happened. You don't know if it's an exercise or for real, so you have to react in 20 seconds.
In fact, our tour was punctuated by such an emergency drill, a man overboard.
Seaboat's man and ready.
Launch the seaboat, launch the seaboat. Go ahead, boat engine. Go ahead, boat engine. Go ahead, 500, Rupert 74 on, sir. Very good.
Plenty of adrenaline is pumped aboard these vessels at times like this, but there are also quieter, more routine days. These students have been aboard just a couple of weeks. That's not a long tour at sea for many sailors, but it's a good taste of the Navy life.
There are sometimes the life is a little tougher than sometimes somewhere else. Depends on the weather, really. If the weather is good, the life will be good. If the weather is not too good, the bad weather is like rain, stuff like this, morale is pretty down, and then you have to beat the other guys, try to put some joke in and stuff like this to put all the guys happy around. And it's teamwork. Everybody, we're 8 officers under training here, and it's a very good crew there. Everybody tries to help each other and doing works and everything. It's a good life so far.
It's not just a good life for men in the Navy these days. There are 2 women receiving officer training aboard the Cowichan.
The ships have had women on board now for, I guess, about a year and a half, and myself and one of the other minesweepers, the Thunder, are carrying women on board, junior officers, female junior officers on board.
Any special arrangements made for that?
Well, we had to do a few minor modifications to our mess deck, but not really an awful lot. Obviously, we had to arrange the mess deck so that there was separate male and female accommodations. But no, not really. Other than that, the messing is the same, and there's no difference between the training of the males and the females.
The training squadron's stop in Prince Rupert was a welcome change of pace and a bit of a rest for the crew members and students. But Seafest was just part of the way through the ship's journey.
We left Esquimalt, which is our home base near Victoria, at the end of May, and we went to New Westminster for a weekend, and then we picked our way up the coast. We spent last weekend in Port Hardy, and this weekend, of course, we're in Prince Rupert for the Prince Rupert Seafest. On Monday morning, we sail across for the Queen Charlottes, and we'll operate in the Queen Charlottes for about a little less than a week. Then we're going to nip down to the northern Vancouver Island area, and we'll make our way home via the west coast of Vancouver Island and pop into a few of the small ports along the west coast.
And when the students get home, there's more work ahead of them.
So when they complete their training here, they receive what's called a certificate of competency, and after some further training in destroyers, they'll receive what's called a bridge watchkeeping ticket, which means that the captain of their ship has said that they're qualified to stand a watch by themselves on the bridge of a destroyer. So that's what they're working for eventually.
The student officers on board have various goals for their careers in the Navy. Some of the observers on our tour from Prince Rupert also have their sights set on a life at sea. They watch the action on board with keen interest.
The thing I found interesting here was that how all the equipment on here worked and how the ship was run.
You plan to join the Navy?
Yeah, I do.
What kind of a position would you like to see yourself in?
I don't know, I guess I'd like to be a captain of a ship, I guess.
These sea cadets have plenty of opportunities. The 1st Division Canadian Training Squadron sails year-round, training junior officers and providing advanced naval courses for officers already working in the Navy.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Prince Rupert racks up an average of 2,551 millimeters of rainfall every year, or 212 millimeters per month. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives to witness a sunny Seafest parade.
1989 Seafest faithful were treated with what could almost be described as a perfect day. Over 2,000 people lined the streets of Prince Rupert Saturday morning, looking for examples of extravagance and excess. From my vantage point, no one was disappointed. As is usually the case, politicians were on hand, making sure they were visible. Pageant queens had a chance to work on their smiles and waves, and the cliche of bigger is better was put to the test. Yes, there was a lot of strutting going on, but then why not? A parade is a chance to relax, enjoy, and if you want to, become someone else for a day. But the parade wasn't the end of Seafest, it was just the beginning. The 3-day event was chock full of all kinds of things to do. If you felt like walking around, you could do that. And if food is something you can't resist, well, that was there too. A variety of different ethnic dishes were there for the taking. After the food, there was an opportunity to try and work off some of those hard-earned calories. The bed races have become a regular must-see at Seafest, so for those who like comfort, they were given the chance to run or sleep off some of what they had just eaten. The younger kids in the crowd put their competitive spirit into the soapbox races. I don't know who won, but then I don't think anyone was too concerned. That was one of the nice parts about this year's celebration. Winning wasn't a priority, having fun was. Kids young and old were on hand, each offering a little bit of themselves. The theme of this year's festival was a salute to the Coastal Marine Highway, the Alaskan and BC ferries. And as one might expect, Sea Festival did involve a variety of seagoing activities. These men crewed 7 canoes which traveled over 40 kilometers from the village of Kitkatla, south of Prince Rupert, all the way to Seafest.
We did it last year in a rowboat. We came in last in a rowboat, big rowboat, that's right. Slowest run.
So a big difference between a canoe and a rowboat for you, your first this time.
Yeah.
How long did it take you?
We left. We could have did pretty good time, but we had to wait up for the other guys all the time. We could have been in a long time. I forgot what time we left this morning.
Did you have a lot of trouble with the wind, and did the water cause some trouble for you?
Just in one spot there, so.
Where was that?
Outside Smith Island. That's the only spot we had a tough time there.
You look pretty cold as well, the water seeping in onto the canoe?
Yeah, splashing in there. We topped it out across there, had some waves we were running into. Smallest canoe there too.
You gonna do it again?
Yeah, I'll do it again next year.
A race of a less serious nature was scheduled for Sunday. These would-be mariners were given 4 hours to build their own boats and then sail them at their own peril. Water jousting provided many with a great opportunity to vent their frustrations and to take a swim at the same time. And for those who can't stand taking things slow, there was a course set up for bathtub races. The waterfront events attracted a large number of spectators, which in turn created an opportunity to display some of the North Coast seagoing community. The weekend also offered those who wanted it a chance to check out the rich cultural traditions of the North Coast Native community. The 6th annual Indian Culture Days was presented by the Friendship House Association, and over the last few years has become a regular part of Seafest. I talked with organizer Farley Stewart.
And, the Quianglis dancers will be here. They're a local group from Prince Rupert, and the 4 Tongass dancers from Ketchikan, Alaska. And also the big one that I'm looking forward to watching is the King Colif Concert Band, where they've got about 40 people in their group.
A lot of different age groups being represented?
Yeah, I'd say there is. King Colif varies. They've got a few elders in their group, and a lot of young people coming up learning to play the musical instruments and being part of their group. With 4 Tongass, all their dancers are. They've got about 12 dancers, children, and 3 chaperones, and they're basically young people. And the Quianglis dancers is another young group from Prince Rupert. A lot of people have seen them perform around here, and they're a young group with about 8 to 10 kids in there, a couple of chaperones.
A lot of our songs and the story with the songs is teaching, like Yanni Gugwa that teaches our children that if they don't obey, this evil spirit will come and take them away. And like the beaver, the otter, who is trying to open a shell down the beach, and he's getting frustrated and crying, and beaver is amused with this and imitates the otter and starts dancing toward him. Now this teaches our people that no matter how frustrating life becomes, if they look further, that they will see humor in the situation.
All the Seafest participants brought something unique to the celebration, whether it was their good humor, their talent for the arts, or their ability to be just plain silly. Sometimes fun is that simple.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.